to rehash, this has been a 3-part series that we've done over the last 3 weeks, and it's very specifically about those few seconds that matter in a day of whether your business gets done or not. We work for 8 hours a day, right? 5, 6 days a week sometimes, and we spend all this time doing real estate. However, whether you make the sale or don't make the sale comes down to a few words that you say at a pivotal moment when you actually are speaking with a prospective buyer or seller. And sometimes as realtors, we want to work on everything else other than that few seconds that matter. And so the first week, we really went over lead generation objections. What are some of the things, just as you're prospecting, as you're lead generating, what are some of the objections that you get? Some simple ones, a little bit more complex, and then some really complex. So then we moved from that to the second week, which was all about follow-up, right? As I've met a client, right? I've lead generated for them, I've had them, but now there's 6 months, or there's a year, there's 2 years in between when I've met them and when they're going to be ready. How do you continue to stay in their world? What are some of the objections that come up over time? And how do you prep the client, set the right expectation and everything? This week is all about, okay, now that we've done all the following up, we're really going in for the appointment. We're going in to have a listing presentation. We're going into wanting to do a buyer consultation. And so what I'll say is this, I'm going to review the 10 types of closes real quick. I'm then going to go into a little bit more about some specific scenarios. And you don't have to participate if you don't want to. I'm not requiring it. I'm willing to just kind of speak through and give my 2 cents. But if anybody wants to just practice 1 or 2, and there's no right or wrong, this is literally a safe space, a practice zone of let's try some of the word choices that you'll use, to try and go in for your listing appointment or your buyer appointment. So let's kind of run through this. And again, we're at 1:15 already here, 1:14. We're going to be in and out of here in half an hour. 40 minutes, we should be good to go to wrap up through everything. So first, let's talk about these 10 types of closes, all right? Now, has anybody seen stuff like this before, the different types of closes, right? Dave's kind of nodding your head, yeah. So what this is basically, these are not meant to be say like, I always use this one, or I always use that, right? I know there was that big push ABC, always be closing, you got to try and close 7 times. Okay, some people prescribe to that, some people don't. I think sometimes that can be a little aggressive, but there are ways, depending on maybe the disc profile of the person that you're meeting with, one of these other closes may work a little bit better for them, right? So let's just kind of walk through these. So the assumptive close, right? Proceed as if the prospect has already agreed, right? Let's pencil in our pencil in for Thursday at 3. I use this one actually a lot. For me, this is when we sit down to go over the listing, I'll be explaining you this. We haven't even talked about the fact that I would be, but I start future pacing them a little subconsciously to say, hey, when we meet, when we sit down to do the listing, when I come over to your house, this is the type of stuff that we'll start to talk about and go over it. They're like, oh, when you come over. You didn't even ask me if you could come over yet. I'm assuming, like that assumptive close. And what it does is it removes in my opinion, it removes the hubbub of asking for the appointment when you just assume like, no, the natural extension of this process is me coming over. That's what happens next. And a lot of prospects, they're just like, yeah, okay. When we stop it and make a big deal about it, now they're kind of getting a little like, okay, why all of a sudden was everything cool, casual? And now you're like, by the way, would you be open-minded or open to the idea that if I possibly were to swing by, maybe come to your house one day, they're going to make a bigger deal about it, right? So the assumptive close I find is a really nice, natural, like future-facing them. I'm the professional, I'm in control, this is what happens. Obviously, the direct close, this is more of, I channel my Frank Genzano, the direct close. Ask clearly and directly for the appointment. Can we meet at 10 a.m. on Friday to discuss this further, right? Very specific. It's a very direct offer. I'm not beating around the bush here. I'm not trying to neuro-linguistic program you. This is what we're all kind of used to. This is just one of the purest sales. The alternative choice, right? We talk about this all the time. Hey, all right, if we're going to meet for the appointment, is Tuesday okay, or would Thursday be better, right? You always ask a question where there's not an answer to say no. It's just 2 versions of a yes that both make sense for you. What works? I always start first. What works better, week or weekend? Week, okay. Would you prefer when? I have Wednesday or I have Thursday. Thursday, morning or noon? Morning or afternoon? Morning. All right, I got a 9:30 and a 10:30. Right? I never offer them the opportunity to decide whether they will or won't. I just start A or B, A or B, A or B, A or B, they all lead to the same thing of getting an appointment. So the alternative, because we talk all the time, I want options. I don't want to feel locked into one. I want to feel like I'm choosing, right? And if they get to choose, well, Thursday morning, and I went to 10:30. They feel like they've set the appointment, right? They feel like they are the ones setting it, but really we're helping. The urgency close. Some of these you can tell are going to be used more often than not. The urgency for close to me is a little bit more about, hey, look, we're talking about your listing. I know it's important to you to get top dollar. We're here in August, okay? If we don't start getting you on the market, we're going to miss this summer pricing, right? We're going to start dragging this into October. You're going to start dragging it into the holidays. It's going to be a lot more. So I really want to sit down with you soon so that you have an understanding of the plan of how long some of these things take. We don't just snap our fingers and the house is on the market. There's lead-in time. So I really need you to understand the urgency of what we need to do to even get to that point, right? I mean, yes, could you say I only have 2 slots left this week, which would be better for you? I think you could. I think that's more of a subtle one, not the lead-in. That's more of a, you know what, we could go to next week. I'm going to be honest, I'm swamped next week. What if we just met tomorrow? I'll come over for an hour. Tomorrow we'll finish this up, right? So again, I don't use that one as often, but I can see when it works. The summary close, right? Reinforce the value by summarizing the key benefits. We'll go over the best strategies for listing your home. Let's set a time to discuss. How about tomorrow afternoon, right? And this is hopefully as you kind of, and I just want to scroll down here a little bit. Right, obviously, as you've been talking to this client, you've gone over something here at the end. Don't ever forget, you have a really good idea of all the things that you've talked about. Your clients are hearing this for the first time. Just like we just went through with Michael Lewis. Do you guys retain like one piece of information that we went over? No, very unreasonable for us to expect this to have absorbed all. Why the heck do you think your client just did it when you just went through a whole spiel for 15, 20 minutes about the listing, and then we're going to check buyer financing, and we'll have to talk about inspection stuff and all this stuff. All right, are you ready? They're like, ready for what? I don't even remember what the point of what we were doing. So I use summary closes in everything I do. It's like, just to reiterate, 1, 2, 3. Right? Make it digestible. Just a reminder of what we talked about. 1, I want to go over the process. 2, I really want to build that search for you. And 3, I want to talk about financing and introduce you to your lender. That's what we're doing when we meet. What works better for you Tuesday or Thursday, right? You can have that long soliloquy, but then you got to bring it back to like, okay, I'm a buyer now. I'm deciding if I want to exchange my time for the information you're going to give me. Make it a real simple. What is the information I'm getting? 1, 2, 3, and it's going to take this long. Good. Now I have it as a buyer. It's a digestible decision that I can make, right? So I really like summary closes constantly. The question close. Wouldn't it be helpful to review your options in person? Pierce uses these a lot. He loves these things. And this is a big one when it comes to Phil Jones. You guys know Phil Jones? Phil M. Jones. I get some yeses, some nos. So Phil has been a keynote speaker now for a couple of our family reunions and mega camps. He's a British guy, so love hearing him talk. But he also was a real estate agent and ran a real estate sales team that was very successful. But his thing is all about the artistry of the words that we use. And he calls them sort of these keys to unlock the defensive buyers and keys to unlock defensive sellers. Should we meet, or would you be open-minded to us sitting down and meeting? Right? While we're asking the same thing, they do disarm your seller a little bit. Book. There's a great book called Exactly What to Say and Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents. It's like a bathroom reader. I don't mean to call it that, but it's like short, like 2 paragraphs on a page, just illustrating a point, and it's like a smaller book type thing. That is an awesome, awesome, awesome book. I'm actually thinking I have some of the things he uses. Yeah. How open-minded are you to it? What's your experience with? How important is it? What do you understand about? How would you feel if? How certain are you? Could it be possible? Right? These little openings that turn somebody from kind of defensive, I'm waiting for the sales push, to let's just make this a little bit more of a free-flowing conversation. So some of those things there I find are really helpful. So Phil M. Jones, Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents. Fantastic book when you start to get to some of these kind of question closes, asking it back to them. One of my favorite question closes is, do you think that the next natural step for us is for us to meet? Do you think the next natural step for us is to meet? Right? You're giving the ball back to them. It's their decision, but you're also asking like implicitly, yes, the natural step is for us to meet. And you're going to kind of feel a little weird if you say something different. you're kind of putting them in a box of, yes, the normal, natural, right? People want to be part of the herd. They want to be in the middle, right? So that's those ways of framing that. It kind of puts them in this natural zone, and they'd have to go unnatural to disagree with you. The trial close. Does everything sound good so far? If so, let's sit down. Oh, I'm sorry. I realize that this is, I'm not on the same one here. That's why I apologize. So the trial close, does everything sound good so far? If so, let's schedule a meeting to get started. Right, and so you're kind of saying, hey, you know what, and this kind of comes back to that assumptive close a little bit, where we're talking to them, and it's sort of, I'm about to go for the kill, but before I do, I'm going to brace them that I'm about to go for the kill, right? Hey, you know what, had a good presentation, we've had a good conversation here about kind of where you're at with your process with wanting to list the home. So, for us, we're going to want to sit down and kind of go through this, but I want to ask you, are you ready? Is it natural for us to go to that next part? We're kind of giving it to them, but then pulling it away. And that goes right into this next one, the takeaway close, which is a little bit kind of the trial close, but a little bit more the same. I understand if the timing isn't right, but I hate for you to miss this opportunity. Should we set up a quick call? Saying that, hey, I want to do this for you. It might not be available for you when you're going to want to do it in the near future, right? We get hit with this from retailers all the time. They're like, hey, you know what? Our buy one, get one sale, it's going to be ending Friday. We're going to be doing another one next week, but this one's ending on Friday, right? All of a sudden, we're like, there is that small consumer part of us that does decide, like, yeah, I don't want to miss this. I don't want to miss this. So that takeaway close, Joe Ryan, my old team leader, he used this one a lot, where he's like, look, I want to give you this great offer. I want to give you everything. I think I've demonstrated a lot. I don't know if I'm going to be able to extend this to you. I don't, right? We bring in agents all the time. Our market center shifts all the time, as we get more competitive. I don't know if I can give you this offer again, right? I hope that we can do that, especially when you're talking to someone and you're saying, hey, if we met, the fact that you are going to be a seller and you're going to be a buyer, yes, I am willing to negotiate my commission on those. But, I got to be honest, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that in the near future. I just don't know where we'll be at that point with different things. So I can probably do that for you today, but things may change a little bit in the future. So let me know if you want to kind of take advantage of that. Again, I just don't know what the future holds, right? So that little bit, the referral close, leverage the influence of a mutual connection or a previous client. Hey, your friend John said that you'd be interested. He really benefited from our consultation. Can we meet next week? Obviously, that's wonderful if we have that warm and mutual connection. But sometimes, I'm not saying you make it up, but you can say, look, I dealt with somebody very similar to you literally a couple months ago, and they had all the same fears that you had. And when we really sat down and we went through everything, here's kind of the way that it went. And it actually, we made a lot, just like we're doing here, we made a mountain out of a molehill. All those same concerns that you have, he had. And guess what? They really weren't that big a deal when it all came down to it. I know that we're always, planning for the worst. That's not a big deal. So John went through it really simply. So why don't we sit down? I'll kind of explain that to you in a little bit more detail. It's kind of like a faux referral. It's like a story referral that the buyer can kind of see themselves in someone else's shoes, even if it's not an actual true warm connection.
Are you going to be sending this list to us?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
This last one is a Jerry one, and I was happy to see that it kind of popped up as I was doing some of my research here. The feel, felt, found. Well, ever since I heard this the first time where Jerry kind of went through it, you've had somebody probably do this to you before and you didn't realize. Look, I understand how you feel. Many of my clients felt the same way at first. And what they found is that taking a first step made all the difference. How about we set up a quick meeting, right? I know how you feel. I'm being empathetic. I'm meeting them where they are today. I'm letting them know, arm around you. I get it. I see what your fear is. I see what the excitement is. I'm here with you. That's our feel, right? Feel, felt, found. So then I can, for me, many of my clients felt the same way at first. I love that so many of these bring it to someone else felt that way too. This law of kind of wanting to be in the herd when you're making a decision as a person, there's a very small subset of the population that is truly counterintuitive, that does want to be just a contrarian for the sake of contrarian. Yes, you may find those people, and if you notice that pattern, adjust. But most people, when it comes to decision making, and especially when it comes to expensive decision making, where they don't have all of the information, they want to feel like the decision I'm making is one that many other people make. And that way, it kind of takes a little bit of the responsibility of the decision off their shoulders, and it makes it more of a community decision now, right? Oh, this is what everybody does. Okay, well, if I do that too, at least I won't be called stupid if it doesn't work out. I'll just say, well, I did what everybody else did. There's always that little bit of putting people in their shoes. Nick uses this all the time. He's like, I totally understand that. I hear that so often, right? I hear that concern so often. He always says that when he's talking with somebody to kind of, again, spread it out. So these are just 10 appointment closes. So what I want to start to do a little bit is we're going to jump to the next part, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about here, which is let's actually start talking about if you had some of these scenarios going for the appointment, what would you actually say? And how would you then kind of see where they're at, separate the logic and the emotion a little bit, address the logic, and then push on the emotion to go for the close. So let's start taking a look at number 1 here. And we're not going to go through every single one of these. I might jump around a little bit for the sake of time. I have some buyer and seller simple ones, but then I have a couple more complex ones. So these are kind of like get the brain thinking a little bit, kind of get the juices flowing, but then we'll go to some slightly more complex situation. All right, so I'm just browsing. I'm not ready to commit yet. Who has had an online read that said this? Everybody, every single human being in the entire world, right? I'm just browsing and I'm not ready to commit, right? Buyer may feel they're early in their search. They don't want to be pressured into a formal process. They're likely exploring online listings or visiting in open houses without a clear plan, right? That's going to be a ton of our business, right? I'm just browsing at the moment. So does anyone want, and you don't have to have it all polished up or anything like that, but does anyone want to take a stab at this one as to what would you say or start to say to somebody who fits that?
There's I just say, thanks for letting me know. I totally understand that. How do you think about moving? And then you're trying to dig into their motivation and get away from everybody's looking. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a reason you're looking.
Yep.
And I want to know why you're looking.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect tactic. So much of these objections, we want to win the argument, right? We want to have the answer for them. That's not the approach. We actually find that that's pretty counterproductive a lot of times because then people feel like they're being backed into a corner. Like, okay, well, you're the professional. That's what you said. So, all right, yeah, I'll set an appointment for you. And then they no show because they're like, yeah, I just needed to get him off the phone. I just couldn't dance with him. So the idea of asking a question again, right? We always know whoever asks the most questions is in control of the conversation. But I think that idea of I'm just browsing, I'm not ready to commit yet. Okay, hey, no, I totally understand. Everybody at one point is just browsing. What brought you to the home search site today? What's kind of the reason why you're looking to buy today? Okay.
You want to get them into telling their story and getting to the emotion of it's going to be a first time home buyer or I'm downsizing or I got to be close from my mother or wherever it may be. What is it? Emotions make you act.
Logic makes you think emotions make you act. That's exactly right. I am not ashamed to say I have used strong emotional reasons to then push them through a sale. I think that's actually what good salespeople should do. They add the perspective back, right? When someone tells me, hey, look, we need to get out of the condo because my wife's pregnant and, we're expecting and we need to get into a townhouse. We need to get into a single family home, but we're a little early in the search. I'm not ready. Okay, no problem. Let me ask you a question. Are there any processes that you've ever had where more time makes it worse? More time to plan makes it a worse outcome? Okay, so we know that by starting early, we know that's going to be helpful. Well, let me ask you a second question. Would you be okay if I talked to your wife and said, your husband is not willing to do the extra planning because he doesn't really care to get you in that house before the baby's born? Now, that's a little bit of a strong example. But I have totally used almost that exact example.
Really?
100%.
Wow.
100%. You have a pregnant wife, I'm pushing on that husband a lot about that. I'm like, buddy, you really want to deal with all that has to come with that? Now, again, that's a strong example, but there are a lot of ways. Okay, hey, you told me that having a backyard for your kids is super important. And we're kind of sitting here and we're, deciding between these two things. Are you okay if I go tell your kids that they don't have a backyard to play in and they got to go play at a park down the street every day? Okay, well, I understand that you want to be at 250, but you're approved up to 400. The houses that are going to have that backyard for your kids, they're going to be a little closer to the 300 to 325 mark. And as we come up from 250 up to 325, we're only talking about $200 to maybe $300 a month in difference. Would you like me to go talk to your kids and say that their happiness for the next 10 years is not worth $200 a month?
Daddy hates you.
Right. So, but we are professional perspective providers. That's what we do. We reshape and we reprioritize and re-add the proportions of what things matter, right? He's thinking just my peace and solace matters more than my kid's future happiness. We have to reshape that. So let's keep going. So I already have, yeah, please go ahead.
Say that, I just saw the open house sign, just thought that let's go in and see how the house looks like. If we are deciding in the future to move or something.
Yeah.
And you are not ready to move, we are not ready to decide.
Yeah.
We just saw the sign, we were just walking down the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think that's where this kind of blend of asking them a little bit. Awesome. Well, how about this? Do you mind giving me some good feedback then? Do you mind come through the house? Come through. No problem. I want you to see everything that you can. And I really, since you're not truly in the market right now, you're kind of separated from this, which is great because you're not too emotionally involved right now. So you might actually give me probably some of the most accurate feedback that I've gotten today. So if you don't mind, do you mind doing some of that for me?
That's great.
Okay. By the way,
If you ask enough digging questions, you'll find out it's more than just they just walk.
and then what I would want to do from that scenario and exactly that is like, okay, well, all right. So just so I have a point of reference, what kind of home are you in right now? Do you own that or are you renting? I just want to understand your feedback. Is it kind of something you're seeing similar or is this very dissimilar for you? So that's that question process that I start going down with them and I'm starting to uncover. Oh, well, we're renting. Oh, okay, awesome. All right, well, come take a look at the living room. By the way, for your rental, when's your lease up? Oh, your lease is up in 6 months. Awesome. Okay. Well, let me know how you think about the kitchen. Is this bigger or smaller than your kitchen at your, oh, this is definitely bigger. That's kind of what you're shooting for, a little bit of a bigger kitchen. Okay. Well, and by the way, just so you know, if you want to be out of your lease in 6 months, I got to get a little bit of 30 days ahead of time, and I got to have you under contract for 30 to 45 days. That's bringing us all the way back to month 3. I also have your pre-approval good for about 60 days, so that puts us at about 5.5 months out. That gives us about 2 weeks to get you pre-approved. You cool if we sit down maybe sometime this week, kind of chat about it? Most of the time, buyers have no idea the length of leeway and lead time into a process. So the questions of kind of using them as, hey, come with me. Yeah, be my little feedback buddy. But I'm also going to ask you some questions about your relativity with it and how that's going to apply to your feedback. But at the same time, I'm asking those digging questions more for my process. So that's kind of the hints. I already have a friend or a family member who's a realtor. To me, this is kind of a simple one. Okay, awesome. Did you sign a buyer agency with them yet? No? Okay, then we can continue talking. If they say yes, I back off. Right, if they say, yep, I have a signed buyer agency agreement, fantastic, thanks for coming to the open house, or hey, you know what, I don't ever want to step on toes, what I'll do is this, I'll send you just my information so that you have it, but again, you have an existing relationship with another realtor, I respect our industry, I respect the professionals here, I don't ever want to step on any toes, but I also understand that not every buyer finishes with the realtor that they originally signed up with. So as a great second choice for you, I'd love to be there for you if you're not getting everything that you need out of your current agent, but I'm sure the agent you're working with, I'm sure they're a great person. Best of luck. Back off, right? Don't break ethics. Don't ever break ethics. But if we come into that, the family member one's hard, but if you can get one angle in there, it's the reason why my uncle didn't list his house with me. He said, Connor, in our family, we had some loans and some money here and there. That's all been cleared up at this point, just lending some money here and there. But we really don't want to mix family and finances. And that's fine. That's fine. I've sold my mom's houses. I've sold my dad, my grandmother's houses. I've sold I've done all that. But just my uncle, for this reason, he doesn't want to mix finances and family. So I would at least with the family member, hey, I love that. How long have they been an agent? 2 weeks. Okay. Well, what we can maybe do is, if you'd like a more seasoned professional to help you, why don't we bring your son, your friend, your family member, whoever it is, why don't we give them a referral fee? Let's give them a referral fee so they can still earn as part of the transaction. I can keep them in the loop with some of the things that are going on. But this way, at least, they're being taken care of, they're not being forgotten, but you're having somebody with much more experience to be able to come in and sit down and help you, right? So play on that family and finances issue there. Find out if the agreements have been signed, and then always offer to maybe bring them into the tow a little bit as a referral or something like that. So you can still get it where you're not kicking them out. They can have that best of both worlds. Sometimes the grandma's like, I gotta use my grandson who just got his real estate license, but I'm terrified. It's like, well, why don't we still give him some money, make him feel good, but then you can still hire another agent. And I'm like, okay. So I don't want to waste your time. I'm not ready to buy right now. I always say to them, well, you're not wasting anybody's time. I I do this for a living. I have these conversations for a living. It's really no problem for me. I can still do that this weekend. For me, it's not about my time in that regard. It's about you having the right resources early enough in the process so that you can plan the road ahead. That's really where I'm coming from. It's really no problem for me. When would you like to do it, right? It's really no, I say that as a kind of a throwaway line, but it's important. It's really no problem for me. This is not some big hubbubaloo that I have hours and hours and hours of preparation for. Like, sometimes it is, but hey, it's really no problem for me. You're not wasting anybody's time. What we would just do is give you some information now. So again, you can plan better. At the beginning, if you're crossing the Atlantic, if you're 1 degree off, by the time you get all the way across, you could be 100 miles away from your destination. I just want to make sure today your boat's kind of set in the right direction, and then you can go travel.
I like your
And then
analogies.
you can spend some time, right? Metaphors are the way to bring people from other walks of life into the same walk of life. I don't think I can afford to buy a home right now. Why do you say that? Why would you say that? I don't know. All right, at least we're being honest. I appreciate you letting me know that you're just nervous. Well, let me ask you another question. How good are you with a calculator? Terrible? Great. Well, I'm a master calculator worker, and you can use whatever example, but I'm really good at that. This is all I'm trying to do for you is just sit down with you. Let's play with a scenario right now. Let's not worry about your finances or anything. Let's just play out a scenario. Let me just explain to you, what is a lender actually looking for? What are a couple things that lenders actually want to know from a buyer?
Your income.
Their income. Yeah, how much money you make, your income. What else is a lender looking for? Yeah, so the income, the employment. What else? Yeah, their debt, and their debt to income ratio is an important one too. What about that 3-numbered thing that apparently tells you whether you can afford payments on something or not? Credit score. Yeah. Credit, income, and assets. That's kind of the quick way to say is when you sit with a lender, they're looking for 3 main things. They want to know your credit score, they want to know your income, your debt to income ratio, and they want to know kind of how much money you got in the bank. And what do you own? 401ks, different things like that. So you not wanting to buy a home right now, again, it's a great question. Many people feel that way. A lot of people have felt the same way that you're feeling, right? And what we found is that by just sitting down with the mortgage professional, a lot of times it's like a free financial audit. And I don't mean to say audit in like a scary IRS way. I mean just a friend who really doesn't have any other incentive other than you doing what you want to do to give you a really good once look over at your finances. And he's not there to just tell you whether you can or can't. He's also there to tell you, if no today, here's how tomorrow, right? And that's my favorite thing is to actually meet with a lender real early so that you can get that idea of what do I need to do reorganizing my finances. Sometimes it's not about paying stuff off. Sometimes it's about just reorganizing a couple things and then you'll be good. So would it be okay if I kind of sat you down with the lender just so that he can kind of go through that and tell you maybe what you need to reorganize between now and then? Let's take the pre-approval off the plate. Let's get away from let's take the house buying and the pre-approval. Let's move that off to the side for a second. Let's just figure out where you need to go over the next 6 months to get a little bit closer. Let's just start there. Okay. So bite size it, right? When I ask people, could you imagine buying a $400,000 house? No, I've never even had $400,000 in my bank account at one point. I don't think I've ever made $400,000 in my life. Okay. Are you going to be okay with a $3,000 a month payment? Yeah, I can do that. I know how much I bring in. Making big numbers, small numbers, making big decisions, small decisions, taking a 4-1-1 approach to a decision. Instead of thinking about the entire plan for the year, let's just think about what we need to do this week. Let's agree to what needs to be done the week, not the whole year plan. The week. So these are some of the buyer rates. So let's start jumping here a little bit. I want to jump down to some of the seller ones, right? That first one, right? I'm not ready to sell right now, maybe in a few months. They may want to delay until they feel more confident, market conditions, and personal readiness. I think it's in the narrative there is we have no idea why they're saying something like that. No idea.
Just ask them what's happening in a couple of months.
Right. Maybe in a few months. Absolutely. Hey, I totally respect that. Again, we move on your time, not on my time. What are you hoping to solve or find out between now and that couple months? Is it going to be I want to save up more money because I had a number in mind? Is it because I have a job relocation offer that came in that I don't know if I'm going to be accepting it or not? So that may be preventative. There could be 1,000 reasons in there. But I'm not ready to sell right now, maybe in a few months. The worst thing that you're going to do is say, well, now's a really good time. You really should think about listing it now. You gave absolutely zero empathy. You gave absolutely no attempt to figure out what's going on in their world with that. So Dave, it's exactly right. What's going to happen in a few months, or what are you waiting to find out in those few months before we move forward, right? I'm just curious about my home's value. I'm not looking to sell. We've gotten this, right? Of course we've gotten this. Absolutely. Well, hey, why don't I'd like to help you with that. No, I totally understand if you're not looking to sell. What I can do right now is I can give you a really wide range as to what your home would be worth, but I'll be honest, the margin of error is terrible because all we're using is an auto value method like a Zestimate. We know how accurate those are. So let's do this. If you're open to it, I can come over either this week or this weekend. We'll sit down, just show me your house. We don't have to go through a whole listing presentation or all of that, but what I'll do is you bring me over, talk to me like I'm a buyer, show me around your house, and then yeah, I'll be able to provide you a really nice CMA of what your home's value should be worth. Is that okay? So again, take some of the big decisions, this list, sell. Let's just first start with meeting each other, and let's give you the information you want, which is just what your home is worth. I can absolutely do that. So then when you're ready, and of course I'll be able to send you some information about when you're ready to go, but with that price, I'll then be able, as an agent, I'll then send them some of the other things as a timeline, as the expectations, as a vendor list, or whatever it is, right? I'll add a lot more value to them than just the sale. But you're gonna have a lot of people this. Anytime you run a what's your home worth ad or anything, you ever run a flyer, probably 9/10 of the people are gonna say that to you. You have to be ready for this one as not a brick wall, just a little speed bump in the process. No, I totally understand. Well, look, I don't know what's inside your house, right? Your house hasn't been listed for a while. I don't know what it is. So I know what these other homes that have been sold for, what they look like. All I want to do is come over just so you can show me the interior. And then I can give you a very, very accurate CMA as to what I would recommend listing your your home for, what we could sell it for. I can't give you an accurate answer unless I actually get a chance to, see the thing, right? So that's all that one would be. I already know someone who can list my house. That's kind of we talked about that one, the other realtor situation, right? I don't want to deal with the hassle of selling right now. Selling feels overwhelming due to cleaning, repairs, staging, accommodating showings. They might not realize there are ways to minimize this burden. Has anyone here been guilty of making a very small issue a lot bigger than it actually is?
Mm-hmm.
We all have done it. Everybody does it. And we always do it, especially as you start ratcheting up the consequences and the price of things. And so again, I don't want to deal with the hassle of selling right now. Which part of the selling process do you think is going to be the most stressful? Which part? Again, not the whole thing. Which part? Which one little thing is going to be the biggest issue? Well, I know I got to make a ton of repairs to my house. Okay. Why do you think those repairs have to be made prior to selling? Well, we got to sell the house in good condition, right? So you could. Do you think every house that goes on the market is in great condition? No. Well, I want to sell for top dollar. But I understand that. What we want to do is get you the highest profit. I can sell your house today, as it looks today, and we'll get a slightly lower price, but you won't have to put any money into it. I could have you spend $10,000 on a bunch of these little tiny bits and pieces of repairs that you think need to be made. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to increase the sale price of your house by $10,000. Depends on what some of these things are. But most of the time, if you're only going to be making a few repairs, there's actually a loss of money that happens. If you're only going to spend $3,000 to $4,000 on a couple things, that doesn't then raise your listing price by $9,000 to $10,000. Now there's a threshold. That's why flipping is a thing. Flippers make money, but they're not looking for a house that's basically done and they just want to come in and put a little touches on it. No, what do they want? They want a disaster. They want something where they have to put in $50,000, $60,000 into it because they know it's only then when you transform a house and then you can buy into the next price bracket and actually earn profit. So most sellers, they want to clean up the house just because it's more of a internal ego thing of I only want to sell my house a certain way. But then we appeal to them and say, like, financially, it's probably a net negative for you to make those repairs prior to listing. So let me come over. If it's okay, I don't know what's better for you, week or weekend. And we'll sit down and you can show me all the little repairs that you want to make. And then I'll tell you which ones I think are the most appropriate to do or not. And if you'd even like, I have a contractor referral that I can bring with me for the listing presentation, and we can walk the house together and he can in real time help you get a really good estimate. Would that be helpful? Yeah, it's no problem for me. I'm happy to do it. Would week or weekend be better, right? I'm worried about not getting the price I want. So let's open this one up, group style, because this is in a time where we've seen prices really blow up, and then we hit kind of a peak in July, and we've now actually backslid a good bit, right? We backslid almost $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in median list price since July. So prices are kind of, people's perceptions of where prices should be right now is a little wonky. And so I'm worried about not getting the price I want. So, Shar, can we come to you for this one?
Okay.
And take your best stab at it, right? There's no right or wrong. But we have to start practicing the thought process of, okay, we're sitting with somebody. So I'm the seller. We've had one or two conversations, but now you're kind of calling to check in and things like that. Hey, Steve, we're calling to check in, and I'm just like, look, Shar, you've been really nice. You've obviously presented me with a lot of stuff, but I'm just nervous that I'm not going to get the price I want.
So no, I'm not going to try to handle.
Well, what was the thing he had said? What was the first thing he did when I gave an objection? What did he do first?
What he did, he answered with an open-ended or affirmed their concern. Like, what price is it that you think that you may want? Okay,
Right. He affirmed it, and then he asked a probing question. So let's try that. So again, Sharp, look, it's been great dealing with you and things like that. Look, I'm just a little nervous about selling because I just don't know if we're going to get the price I want for my house.
What is the price that you are hoping to get for your house? Is that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been kind of looking on Zillow and things like that, and I saw, one of my neighbors sold fairly recently. I've been over there. I know their house, and they sold for $380. But they sold about a year ago. But honestly, I really need to get closer to about 400 for this to make sense for me.
Would this be where I asked them if I could come in and see their house? Or
yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, like I'm very new. Like I just passed the test, and this is all very new.
And this is why you're here. Right?
Yeah.
So the first part was reaffirm. Hey, no, I understand it's a really valid concern, and I get it. What is the price that you think you may need to get sold? Now that may be a little bit of putting them in a box because now you're asking them to actually come up with a price. I think the better question is people don't care about the price they sell the house for. What do they care about? What they walk away with, right? So the question that I may try and go a little bit deeper instead of like, well, what is the price that you want to get for this? Now that might be a question you'll ask at some part because I want to make sure that when I give them my recommendation, I'm not, so far off. I want to see if they're for real. But I would say, all right, well, I totally understand. So what it sounds like is you're needing the certain amount of money to walk away from this house to do something else. What's that something else? Well, we need to pay off debts and we want to have enough down payment for another house. Okay. Well, let's start talking about how much we need there, because then we can kind of back into what price would need to hit. And I'll be honest with you, if we go through and we realize that you're only going to walk away from this with $32,000, and you're telling me that to do all the things that you truly need to do, you're going to have to be closer to about $60,000. I'll be very honest with you, and I'll say maybe right now isn't the best time to sell for you. Maybe we do need to wait a year, maybe even 2, to be able to pay down the principal of your mortgage a little bit more, to allow appreciation to come back up, right? I'll be honest with you, but I don't know how to be honest with you yet when I don't know. So I totally understand you don't know if the price you'll get, but why don't we sit down and let's go through that exercise and talk about it. So you kind of want to always think like 1 or 2 questions ahead, right? But there is a very important time to ask them how much you think it's going to sell for. Here's the worst mistake I think a lot of agents do when they go and do listings. They go in and they've done a really, really good job of a CMA. They have a really good idea of what this thing should sell their home for. And then they tell the seller, this is what you should list your home for. That to me is borderline malpractice. Here's why. You have no idea what they're coming to the table with, what expectations they have. They may have been thinking of a price and they may not hire you because you never even asked where that was, or you may be so far off. Even if you are right, like truly right, if you're too far off, they're just not going to think you're the agent for them. So whenever I'm getting ready for a listing appointment, at some point, once I'm going down that rabbit hole, I'll say, okay, well, just out of curiosity, I'll either do this on the phone call for setting the appointment. I generally like to do it that way, at least I know in, or as soon as I get there, hey, all right, so let's start walking around. I want you to show me around the house as if I were a buyer. I want to kind of see the house through a buyer's eyes. Real quick though, before we go, have you done any research on kind of roughly where you think the price for this is going to end? Okay, all right, cool. All right, well, let's walk around, kind of show me around. In the back of my mind, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this person's crazy. They want $1 million for what's clearly a $450,000 house. So we're gonna have a hard conversation here. Or they may be under. And then that way I get to look like a hero. I'll say, well, I'll tell you what, you know, you're asking, you only want 450. Look, I went through a lot of comps and I want to show you these comparables. And I want to show you that your neighbor right next to you and your neighbor across the street and the neighbor here, they all sold for over 475, all of them. And I'm seeing here that you have a little bit more. So let me ask you a question. Do you still think that that 450 is an accurate price for your home? Well, no, I guess it's a little bit higher. Okay. I kind of agree with you. Based on these other homes, where do you think is probably a more reasonable price to list your home? Probably, you know, you're right. Probably closer to about 480. I think that's a good idea. Let's do this. Let's list it at 480 and let's see what the market says to us. It's not my price. It's not really even your price. The only price that really matters is what the market's going to bear, right? It's never my fault and it's never the seller's fault for pricing it incorrectly. It's the market's fault. It's always the market's fault. Hey, you know what? We tried it at 4.25. We had 10 showings and we didn't have any offers. What the market's telling us is that that's not really the average amount of showings that we should get for a property in this township and on this road. We've gotten a little bit under that. We also haven't gotten any offers. So the market's kind of telling us that while we really think and want to position a home appropriately, it might not be what the market's expecting. So why don't we try and get a little bit closer to where the market might respond positively to us? This whole time, it's me and the seller against the market, not me against the seller. That dynamic can get so caustic inside of a transaction. And then what happens? If you tell them, I want to list your home at 425, and that same situation happens, who's to blame? You are. And it's like, well, you said we should list it here. You said that we were going to get offers here. You said, right? I don't care how good of an agent you are. That's a real hard one to backpedal. Right? So it's always about putting the pressure on the market to be the dictator of whether your price is right or wrong. And going through that comp exercise of allowing them to sort of self-select where the price should be, but it's your job to guide that conversation through effective comparables, through an effective CMA, to let them realize, right? Hey, an extra bedroom can be worth about $10,000 on an appraisal report. Your home and that home across the street are exactly the same, except they had that extra addition over the garage with an extra bedroom, right? You're telling me that you want to list $15,000 higher than what they just sold for literally 2 weeks ago. Can you see where that may not be the best price given what they have versus us, right? And how much this would be worth in an appraisal, right? Jeff Glover, who runs Glover U, that's his tactic. That's not my tactic. That's him. He's like, I take 100 listings a year every year for the last 10 years myself. He's a powerhouse. And he has Glover coaching. And his whole thing on the MRE podcast, he goes through his like 5 steps to a great listing presentation. He never, ever tells a seller what they should list their house for, ever. He always allows them to self-select the number. And he's like, you gotta wait for them to say it. Don't try and jump in and try and give them the wording. Let them pick it, right? So let's go to, can we do a couple more complicated ones, and then we'll start to wrap up here? Because we're right at 155. I know we ran a little bit over, but let's just do 1 or 2 of the complicated ones, and then we'll be done. So more complicated. Oops, no. Oh, again, I'm doing this on here and put over here. Okay. I've had a bad experience with a realtor in the past, and I'm hesitant to go through the process again. So, look, you've been great, right? But I've had a bad experience with a realtor in the past, and I'm just hesitant to go through the process again. I hope you can understand that. What would you say?
Could you tell me more? Why did you feel like that?
Big thing. You know what? I just felt like as soon as we got under contract, I felt like the communication really dropped off. I felt like I had to fight all the time to get in touch with them. And I just felt like we were really alone through the process.
Sorry that you feel like that. I totally understand.
Reaffirm, good.
How
are you going to be different than that age?
I'll make sure that I'll address all of your concerns and be in contact with you often. And
yeah, sometimes it is that simple. Sometimes it is that simple. Don't overthink it. Hey, this other sort of like when you're dating. My last boyfriend, terrible. I could never get a hold of him. Okay, I'm great with my phone, so screw that guy. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Sometimes it's that simple. Just what did they do wrong? Okay. Here's the nice part about this objection. You can screw up a lot of other things. As long as you do the opposite of what the last realtor did, you're kind of in good graces. I kind of love these. Hey, look, I'm really sorry that happened, right? I know that, some realtors are full-time agents, some are part-time agents, some are new, some are really experienced, right? I totally understand that. What was that? A lot of people felt that way. So reaffirm, good. What was it about your realtor that didn't work out? Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm not going to overpromise you or anything, but I've heard your concern, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you don't feel that way again. Does that sound fair? Right? Sometimes I may not have to actually do anything else in the listing presentation other than just tell them I won't screw it up like the last guy screwed it up. I've literally come into listing presentations for 15 minutes. I just sat down. Okay, so ran CMAs. Let's kind of talk about the price. Okay, what concerns do you have? And they're like, we just really want to make sure that this and this gets done. Okay, we can do that. No problem. All right, any other questions? Cool. Here's the listing agreement. I've had 15-minute listing presentations. As long as you just address their main concerns. Sometimes they don't need us to go through our hour and a half full marketing presentation. I love Michael Lewis marketing. But sometimes you don't have to go through every nook and cranny of all the information. That's why the idea of a pre-listing packet is really good. Gene Rivers does this. He owns 10 market centers, teaches quantum leap to Gary, basically. And he said, I send over my pre-listing packet. I send it via courier. It gets hand-delivered to their office where they work, very specific, because he wants to see other people in the office be like, you got a hand-delivered courier? I mean, who does that anymore? He's like, yeah, it's my pre-listing packet. It's a very nice designed marketing packet. And it goes through how we list your home, how we market your home, our staging tips, It goes through all that. When he goes to the actual listing presentation, he's saying, did you have any questions on the pre-listing packet? Here's the price that we've kind of taken a look at, the price range. I just want to go over the comps with you, and I want you to, kind of select what listing price you want to go in. And are there any questions? No? All right, great. Here's the listing agreement. We sometimes feel like we need to get all dressed up. We need to have this full briefcase and tub of materials to go show up and spread out at the kitchen table. And don't get me wrong, for $1 million listing, for something really big, sometimes you may want to jazz it up a little bit. But sometimes just talk to them like a person. Hey, what's the big concerns? Okay, done this 1,000 times. Here's all the information you need to know. That's the stock information. Just person to person. What's the price that we need to be at? And do you have any questions? Okay, well, here's the deal. Here's how we're going to run it. I'll be in touch. My photographer will come out in a couple of days. We'll do it that way. Okay? Keep them short and sweet.
Sorry. So, how about after me saying that, I'll make sure that I'm going to address all of your concerns and everything. How about if that person says, I appreciate it, but I have enough stress in my life, so I'll prefer to just give it some time, and then
Sure.
I'll make sure to call you back.
Sure. I totally get that. And look, I'm not going to be to pressure you into anything. That's my first promise. Here's what I know. When I go to do my taxes and I'm sitting there by myself, I'm real stressed about it. You know when I'm not stressed about it? As soon as I start talking to my accountant. What you're doing is you're stressing about the entire home sale. Most of the time, stress happens because there are decisions that we have to make that we don't have all the information for. That's stressful. I'm going to have to decide on something, but I don't even know what I'm balancing yet. My job is to provide perspective and provide you with information. Why don't we at least just clear the air so that as you go to think about this, it's totally okay if you still decide I'm not ready. That's fine. I just want to make sure you're not ready for a valid reason, not an emotional invalid reason. Let me just provide that perspective and information. Would that be okay? Right? All right. So we can kind of wrap up here. I mean, we can go through this. So what I'll do is, if you want, Connor@kwempower.com, if you just want to email me, I'll send you this whole list of things just so you can kind of read through some of this. So it's Ashlyn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just ask you as we wrap up here. What's a situation that you've come up with recently? Because you had a sale recently, right? Mm-hmm. What was a situation that an objection that you had to overcome in this most recent transaction?
The amount of money that my seller wanted to pay for repairs because she had already done what she thought was expensive, equating to equity repairs in her mind.
So how do you overcome it?
Well, one of the things that she was really big on was the safety for the buyer. She cared a lot about it, and I kind of just repositioned and saying, hey, remember how we said, the safety of who's buying this one is really important. So these repairs that need to be made are going to help with that safety, kind of pivoted that way.
Yeah.
Like I kind of got lucky in that.
Yeah. Anything else in the transaction, or was that kind of a big one?
That was the biggest, just because she had spent like $10,000 on a new AC unit, which doesn't mean that you're getting $10,000 more for your house. So
Correct.
you got to pay
Right.
$9,000 for electrical work that came up. So that was the biggest, but
Yeah.
I mean, nothing that really is like jumping out at me, like. You know.
And again, most transactions, you're not going to get every objection, right? If
Well, and I
you're
think
going to get
another,
one or two different.
I think another thing of it is something like you said earlier. The things that seemed big at the time, looking back at it, I don't even remember all now. You know what I mean? It's like I did make a big deal of some things, but it really isn't anything
Yeah.
that was too major.
I always bring this back to mom in the kitchen, where the stove's on fire, but she's not frightened. She's just like, I'm just going to go get a cloth and put it over here.
Yeah.
Or, oh my God, the same thing is happening, but you're the kid looking at your mom dealing with the situation. And how their tone and how their response to it is whether I should be concerned or I'm not concerned. You have your buyers, your sellers who are looking at these things and they see fire on the stove. They're looking to you to see, are you also freaking out? Are you, oh my God, this is a really crazy inspection report. Oh my goodness, this is one of the longest reports I've ever seen. That's the mom freaking out.
Yeah.
You know what? Look, I know there's a lot of individual line items, but this isn't a big deal. We've gone through a number of these, right? A lot of this stuff is in this small kind of ticky-tacky stuff. Let's just go slow. We don't have to rush through this. Let's just go through. Let's take a look at what the big things are. And we'll first start, again, let's not worry about what our response is quite yet. Let's just first understand, what am I up against from the repair of what that looks like and just how much these might cost. Let's start there for a second, right? Your ability to maintain that easy emotional state is going to mean all the difference. Because he was right. Logic will make you think, but emotion makes you act. And if you're calm, cool, collected, like this is business as usual, even if the house is on fire, literally sometimes, that's going to make all the difference whether they go forward. Right? I have a buyer right now. We're under contract for property in Williamstown, New Jersey, townhome. Upstairs in the attic, there's some black marking on a piece of plywood sheathing. And so the buyer's freaked out because when you look at it on a picture, it's like, no, this looks terrible. It's like, well, first off, there was no active moisture, and we don't even know how this got there. We don't even know how long this got there. So before we start freaking out, thinking that the house is falling apart and that the entire thing needs a new roof, let's just first, how about we just ask the sellers, because they moved in 2 years ago, was this on your inspection report? Yeah, it was. And we had somebody come up and look at it. It was no big deal. I actually have the contractor invoice from it. I'm happy to send it to you. This whole big thing that they wanted to be like, we want a $10,000 new roof. It's like, well, we don't need that. Now, what we still did say, I said, why don't we do this? Let's have a roofer go out. Let's have them actually take a look at it. And what we did find was that underneath, this wasn't causing it because that was from a previous leak from the previous, like 2 owners ago, that was fixed and was already addressed. I mean, we saw the evidence of the repair that had been done when we looked a little bit closer. But we had a new roofer go out and he said, hey, look, that piece of plywood, the sheathing is actually okay, but what you are dealing with, and this wasn't what caused this, but it's not making it any easier, is there's a bathroom vent fan where 4 adults 5 to 6 times a day are taking full long hot showers, and it's just blowing right up against that. So I actually went in, I guess it was an hour after they showered. I did get a little bit of a moisture meeting. So here's what we'll recommend. We don't have to do the whole roof because this is kind of one of those split tiered roofing things on a townhome. Let's just replace that one section of the roof. And what we'll do is we'll stick a pipe penetration there and we'll vent the bathroom out. Instead of this being a $10,000 project, we'll do it for $2,600. And I was able to get the seller to pay for half of it. I was like, so these things that come up, they want to, it's our job. And that's objection handling. Forget the semantics. Forget the word choice of objection handling. It's more about how is your energy receiving this information and how are you calm, cool, collectively projecting it back to them. So if I can leave you with anything as we wrap up here is just keep that emotional stability at the forefront of everything you do. We are professionals. If I went to my mechanic and he started stressing because he saw my car, I'm freaking out. I'm like, I drove this thing here. What do you mean? But he's like, you know, man, we do these all the time. Your transmission's shot. We'll take care of it. It's going to be a couple $1,000. Just brace yourself. We got some financing options for you. Don't sweat it. We'll get this thing done by the end of the day tomorrow. Cool? Yes, that sounds wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm happily gonna pay you the thousands of dollars that you want from me. So we'll wrap up here. Lauren?